Hey, what is up, mortals? Welcome to part 2 season 2 of What If Midoriya Was an AFO Fan. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. The remaining 16 students were being sorted into their brackets for the first round of the final event. President Mike kicked back in the booth with Aizawa as they waited for the break to end. Finally able to announce the break was over, Mike shouted out over the microphone the first brackets. Alright, welcome back ladies and gents. This is the final event, the 1v1 matches. Who will take the gold? Who will prove they're ready to be a member of that new age of heroes Izuku Midoriya mentioned? So many questions. For our first matches we have Izuku Midoriya vs Mashiro Ajiro, Tenya Ida vs Minoru Mainta, Tagaru Kamakiri vs Nito Monoma, Shoto Todoroki vs Yui Kodai, Hitoshi Shinso vs Juzo Honuki, Shihei Kiwaro vs Fumikage Takoyami, Kyoka Jiro vs Toru Hagakure, and Ibara Shizaki vs Momo Yaoyorozu. Listening to the matchups, Midoriya smiled cheerfully as he drank a bottle of water, getting ready to play Mr. Goody Two-Shoes again for the adoring crowds and incompetent pros. Hearing his name called up for his battle with Ajiro, Midoriya wandered out to the field and stood on the stage bowing to Ajiro before taking a combative stance. Ajiro returned the bow, taking his own stance. Being very well educated on martial arts, Ajiro could tell Midoriya was using a style known as Aikido, but as the two started to clash it became obvious Midoriya was incorporating a second combat style into the battle through his additional hands provided by the claw pack, this being Judo. In a humiliating display, Midoriya had managed to not only defeat Ajiro but defeat the boy in his own element without suffering the masked teen's infamous telekinesis. Many people in the audience didn't hold out any hope for Mainta beating Ada. But as Mainta's new master once said, underestimating a foe is their biggest mistake. Ever since joining the league, Mainta had proven to be surprisingly devoted and loyal, really coming into his own when the villain group trained him up a bit to have more confidence and bravery. Ada charged Mainta, attempting to punt the small teen out of the ring, only for Mainta to manage to inhumanly jump over the speedster as he threw sticky ball after sticky ball, trapping Ida the second he stood in them, giving Mainta a surprisingly quick win. Class 1 was completely caught off guard by this display. First he gets more confident and brave, then a new outfit, and now this. Just as Midoriya had warned, a fight between teammates had come. Kamakiri had no desire to hold anything back. He owed the league for opening his eyes and would not insult them by holding back. Monoma wasn't interested in showing any mercy either, mainly because of his pride but also because, like Kamakiri, he didn't want to drag the league's name through the mud, especially his best friend Izuku's team that both he and Kamakiri were a part of. The audience cheered and held their breath as the two villain turncoats clashed over and over, Kamakiri using his agility to dodge Monoma's borrowed quirks and using his own blades to fight back when Monoma used Kamakiri's quirk against him. The battle was long and drawn out just as Kamakiri wanted, finally taking down Monoma when his quirk's time limits ran out. Unsurprisingly, the next battle ended in a victory for Todoroki as he froze the unprepared Kodai in a matter of moments, leaving her unable to continue. Midoriya watched with interest at the next match after congratulating Kamakiri and Mainta after consoling Monoma's wounded pride, of course. Shinso stepped up onto the stage and stared down Honuki. With the signal to begin, Honuki immediately activated his softening quirk, causing the arena beneath Shinso to act like quicksand, pulling him down. What is this? Honuki smirked and was about to answer his question, but as the first few letters left his mouth, he stood stock still like a mindless zombie. Shinso then ordered Honuki to release him and walk out of bounds. Honuki didn't hesitate to follow Shinso's commands, getting flicked on the forehead by Shino after the round ended. Now it was the battle of the edgelords, and frankly Midoriya didn't care much for the outcome and decided to ditch watching it, only to overhear something interesting from just around the corner. A conversation over the phone with Ida, and not the casual kind either, getting Jiro to listen in and relay what's going on. Midoriya found this information very juicy. Sounds like the hero killer has struck down Ingenium, and judging from Ida's killing intent exuding from him, this walking rulebook wanted revenge. Simply perfect. Returning to the stands, it seemed Takoyami had claimed the victory on this one. Jiro vs Hagakure. This could go either way, really time to see who trained harder. Midoriya sat back and watched the two girls attack one another. Thank God for thermal vision. Honestly, the battle was very similar to Monoma vs Kamakiri. It was anyone's guess as just when one would gain the upper hand, the other would wrestle it back. But unexpectedly, Jiro roared out an attack name against Hagakure. With that, Jiro unleashed a massive disorientating shrieking from her various speakers, which scrambled Hagakure's support gear, disabling it temporarily, uncloaking the invisible teen. Whilst disorientated by Jiro's attack, Hagakure felt a kick knock her down and out of bounds. Once again, Midoriya went to congratulate and console his teammates, having little interest in the next match either. Well, that was the case until Midoriya watched a little surprised at Momo carving her way through Shizaki's vines using a freaking chainsaw of all things. The match ended in Shizaki surrendering, not wanting to fight a chainsaw-wielding Yaoyorozu anymore, and who could blame her honestly? Man oh man, are we in for an interesting second round, folks. This round we have Izuku Midoriya vs Kyoka Gyro, Momo Yaoyorozu vs Fumikage Tokoyami, Minoru Mineta vs Hitoshi Shinso, Tagaru Kamakiri vs Shoto Todoroki. Mike screamed out over the audio systems, hyping the crowds for the next round to come. As annoying as present Mike was, Midoriya had to admit the guy could work a crowd better than anybody. Midoriya stepped into the arena with Gyro. He could already feel Shigaraki watching this fight and laughing his ass off. The Shaggy villain was likely already coming up with various jokes about them fighting like an old married couple or something, and he was right. Shigaraki was wheezing and choking on his whiskey as he watched. Oh, look at that Kirigiri, they're having their first lovers spat. Ho. Kirigiri just nodded silently, cleaning up the spilt whiskey as he poured Shigaraki a fresh drink. Gyro spoke softly through her mask with a hint of a chuckle to her tone. Midoriya nodded, sighing as he took another combative stance, whilst Gyro withdrew her twin stun batons. The two teens gave their all, and surprisingly Gyro's sonic blasts kept Midoriya too disoriented to fly, and she had managed to keep him on his toes enough with her stun baton attacks. As Gyro warmed herself up to unleash another Banshee Shriek attack, Midoriya unleashed his own surprise. A claw emerged from his pack, shining a red light upon Gyro, erasing her quirk. Unable to attack with her quirk, she charged Midoriya only to stop dead in her tracks as Midoriya shouted, "Telekinetic, Marionette." He began to force Gyro to attack herself with her batons until she fell into unconsciousness. Then he proceeded to gently lower her onto a stretcher for the medic bots that had come to check her over. This fight's result received a large amount of booing from the audience, but Midoriya ignored it until a voice cut through the crowd. A voice he hadn't heard in years. Underhanded. Doesn't deserve the win. I suppose that means I don't deserve my honorable title of number 5, seeing as I fight in a very similar manner. This young man fought how any of us would when faced with an opponent that has us on the ropes. We'd use whatever we have in our arsenal to achieve victory for the people. Of all people to defend him, this was definitely a surprise. Adshot must either not recall what Midoriya did all those years ago to Bakugo's friend, or he is a firm believer in second chances. Mid-roll, NordVPN. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Staying safe online is an ever-growing difficulty, and hackers could exploit you. NordVPN allows you to change your IP address, making you harder to track, securing your privacy. In addition to providing you with safe passage through the web, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services. Are you tired of going through 2, 3, or even 4 streaming services to watch your favorite anime? Well, with NordVPN, you can change your country and be able to binge shows like My Hero Academia, Naruto, and many others on your favorite streaming service with just a press of a button. Check out the link in the description to get 72% off when buying for 2 years divided by $3.29 a month. This deal is for a limited time. And thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. Midoriya watched the next round, eager to see how exactly his intellectual rival Momo would fare against Tokoyami and his dark shadow. Slightly surprisingly, she didn't do nearly as well as Midoriya anticipated, which moved Tokoyami up the threat list quite a bit, as he had forced Yaoyorozu into purely defending herself straight out of the gate, eventually pushing her outside the ring with the force of Dark Shadow's attacks. As predicted, Minter really didn't last long against Shinso's brainwashing. Even if he knew Shinso's quirk and how it's triggered, it really didn't take long for the tired teen to get under Minta's skin with his barbed comments, making the boy slip up and answer him. Although he put up a good fight, Kamakiri was eventually overpowered by Todoroki's ice. Here it was the semi-finals. Okay, just as I told you folks, you had one heck of a second round to this event, but the show ain't over yet. Next up we have 1B's telekinetic titan, Izuku Midoriya, versus 1A's frosty fighter, Shoto Todoroki, and the dark decimator, Fumikage Tokoyami, versus the brainwashing battler, Hitoshi Shinso. Had telekinetic titan. Not bad. Midoriya made sure to make a mental note of that title. It'd definitely make an impact during his villain debut. Now this next fight was definitely one all for one would be watching closely. Time to embarrass Endeavor and his poor excuse for a successor. This crowd wants a show and Midoriya would give them one. No, tactic kill would. The two teens stepped up to the arena and stared each other down the moment the round began. Todoroki fell onto his back looking at Midoriya in horror as murderous intent exuded from him on a level never felt before as floating blue flames surrounded the telekinetic teen. That's right, Todoroki. I know about your brother, Toya. Midoriya thought to himself as he walked closer to Todoroki. The sound of Endeavor shouting for his son to get up fell on deaf ears as Todoroki blasted wave after wave of ice at Midoriya, desperately, only for it to melt away from the flames that floated around Midoriya, falling back into base instinct. Todoroki began blasting his flames at the black-helmed terror only to see Midoriya brush them aside using his telekinesis. The boy stood over a shaking Todoroki, and a metal claw reached out for his face and released a pink gas. Rest now, Todoroki. It's over. This was the last thing Todoroki heard before being knocked out by a pressurized blast of somnambulist from Midoriya's claw pack. Shinso faced down Takoyami, and it went as expected. The sentient quirk wielder claimed victory easily, even if Shinso did put up a fair fight in hand-to-hand and using his capture scarf, when able to dodge Dark Shadow. Ultimately, however, he was pinned by the living shadow and made to surrender. Midoriya now stood against Takoyami in the arena. Not the final fight he was expecting, but frankly he took more glee in embarrassing Bakugo by getting him disqualified before the second round than defeating him easily in a 1v1 in the finals. Midoriya stood still, gesturing for Takoyami to hit him with the best shot he had. Accepting the invitation, Takoyami unleashed Dark Shadow right into a waiting trap as Midoriya created a bright blue flaming orb that caused Dark Shadow to shriek and retreat back into Takoyami. Eventually Midoriya encircled Takoyami with blue flaming orbs and called for his surrender. With a grunt, the bird-headed boy surrendered to Midoriya, giving him the win in first place while Takoyami took second. Due to being still unconscious from his fight with Midoriya, Todoroki was unable to battle Shinso for who should claim third place, automatically giving the position to Shinso. With the sports festival past, Midoriya headed straight to Vlad King, asking if he and his friends could leave campus and celebrate, getting his approval and later Aizawa's. Midoriya did indeed leave to celebrate with Phoenix Squadron right after the festival. Of course, it wouldn't be a real celebration without the rest of Midoriya's real family, the League. Coming in through a warp gate, Midoriya was surprised by what greeted him. A large group of new faces all gathered around the bar. Welcome back, Izuku. Nice work making a speech that almost inspired every villain in Japan right under the heroes' noses, not to mention your win. Speaking of inspired villains, you've brought in quite a few new recruits, and as our in-house tactician I want you to weigh them up. Midoriya eyed up the various villains, noting that he recognized quite a few here. Some were unknown to him but still seemed fairly capable. I see. So let's see, who have we got? You must be Dabai, the villain with a vendetta against Endeavor. Frankly, I can't blame you because of your background. Mr. Compress, yes. Interesting. It'll be nice working alongside another individual as well-mannered as Kirigiri. Moonfish. Didn't expect a demented cannibal to want to join our ranks. Sorry, but you just don't make the cut. Oh, and you've seen too much to be let go. Suo, sorry, not sorry. Midoriya reached outwards at Moonfish, causing him to crumple to the floor in agony before breathing his final breath. Jesus, what did you do? That was messed up. It was badass. Midoriya glanced at the masked figure that spoke in a contradictory manner. Smirking, I telekinetically grabbed him by the heart and crushed it. A quick and clean death. After all, I don't want to cover my uniform in blood. Kirigiri, could you be ever so kind as to send his remains to the good doctor? I think he'd like another addition. Complying with the request, Kirigiri warped the now deceased Moonfish out of the room. Midoriya then went back to examining everyone else. Okay, now I definitely know who you are. Muscular. In fact, I'm glad you're here, saves me a trip. Without another word, Muscular felt the bones in his arms and legs shattering as Midoriya's claw pack grabbed him by the face, releasing another controlled blast of pink gas, knocking him out cold. Shall I take that one to Dr. Yujiko for you too? Young tactic kill. He was one of the individuals you had listed for your special project. Midoriya gave a nod and a wave, letting Kirigiri handle the rest. It was all coming together with his Namu. Using Hisashi's Fire Breath quirk, Muscular's Pump Up quirk, the Sludge Villain's Sludge Form quirk. Yes, just a few more and Hisashi would be ready to be finally useful for once in his life. Not to mention Master promised to give this one the same quirks as the USJ Namu after Midoriya had requested such after seeing it in action. Sorry about that, everyone. I like to run a tight ship with new recruits. Moonfish was too unpredictable a variable for me to make any meaningful plans around, so he had to go. As for Muscular, he will serve a greater purpose. I trust none of you are dissuaded by this. No? Good. Now unfortunately I do not know of you five, so please by all means, introduce yourselves and your quirks. Midoriya looked over the 5 individuals with a warm smile as if he hadn't just committed murder a few moments ago. One was a man in a bodysuit and mask split into 2 colors, black and gray. Another of the 5 was an individual with a massive magnet, glasses and red hair. Next was a girl dressed in a school uniform, holding a knife with a smile. She was approximately the same age as Midoriya. Beside her was a boy in a gas mask who also wore a school uniform. He held a revolver in one hand, spinning the chamber repeatedly with the other. Lastly was a male who looked like a lizard dressed up in hero killer cosplay with an insane-looking sword on his back that was seemingly made from other swords. Name's twice nice to meet ya, screw you. I can duplicate any individual so long as I have their height and shoe size. Granted, my clones can't take much of a beating, but they're smart enough to think for themselves and act just like the original would. making it impossible to tell the difference. Midoriya nodded with approval, turning to the individual with the magnet. Call me Magni or Big Sis Mags. My quirk allows me to magnetize people by their gender, men being polarized north and women south. Shaking Mag's hand, Midoriya happily smiled. Big Sis, huh? He did always want a sister, and it seemed the growing family of the League had presented him with one, and one with a very useful quirk. Hi, I'm Himiko, Toga Himiko. When I drink somebody's blood, I can turn into them for a period of time determined by how much blood I've consumed. And let me just say, it is always so good to taste someone's blood. Midoriya gave a brief nod toward the psychopathic girl. Not as unpredictable as Moonfish, but could be trouble if she doesn't learn to do as ordered. Still not impossible to plan around though. Hey, I'm Mustard. I'm good with guns, and I can produce a swirling vortex of gas that renders people unconscious if they inhale too much of it, and I can sense the slightest of movements in my gas cloud. I'm not too strong, but train this one up a bit and he could prove very useful. Midoriya shook Mustard's hand, giving another welcoming smile. Spinner, not much about me to tell. I can climb walls. I'm good with swords, as you no doubt guessed, and I'm pretty good at driving when I need to be, even if I ain't got a license. I'm another one that has potential but needs work. Perhaps Master All for One can be persuaded to grant this one some extra quirks. Midoriya hummed to himself, giving Spinner a respectful bow which he received in turn. Well, congratulations. If you're standing here, it's because I've deemed you all excellent candidates for the League. But let Moonfish serve as a reminder. Should any of you prove that you cannot follow orders or turn traitor, I will personally hunt you down and make you beg to be sent to hell. Otherwise, welcome to the family, the League of Villains. Outro. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has got you covered. Are We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, then I'd like to extend you an invitation to join the team. The only caveat being that we only accept members from 16 years and up to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interests by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.